Okay, I'd like to call to order the Bedford Township Planning Commission regular meeting dated December 15, 2021. Call to order. Let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Guevara, can you call the roll?
It's Garverick.
I'm sorry.
Fritz.
Here.
Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Angler.
Here.
Mr. Helm.
Here.
Garverick's here.
And I'm here too. Item 4, appoint the Planning Commission representative to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Ms. Rector?
Yes, we are having a BZA Board of Zoning Appeals meeting in January, and Mr. Anger's term is up, and this will be his last Planning Commission meeting. So I would need a representative from Planning to serve on the BZA Board. And we will be having a meeting on January 3rd. So that representative will need to be, it will actually be a recommendation to the Township Board. So you will actually not serve, should we have a meeting till February, because it won't go to the Township Board until January 4th. But I would like to get it on the next meeting should I have a meeting in February to avoid not having a full board on the BZA. So tonight you would be making a recommendation. I did supply the members. Mr. Fritz has advised he has a prior commitment on Mondays, and the BZA meets on the Mondays, first Mondays of the month. Some of them are the second Mondays due to holidays, or there are a few elections. So it would be either Mr. Mahoney, Mr. Garverick, or Mr. Helm. You have to have served 2 years. So you would need a motion to recommend, and then that person, I did supply the referencing the previous appointment, so you had how the motions will need to be. The applicant will, whoever is recommended, will have to accept the nomination. And then we'll have a second, and then take a roll. And there is an example in your packet.
So how do we get this started?
Someone would need to make a motion to nominate one of those members, and that member then would have to confirm that they're willing to accept the position as the representative from the Planning Commission.
I'll recommend Brad Helm.
Mr. Helm, do you accept the nomination?
How often do they meet?
They meet the first Monday once a month, and we know every BZA requires a public hearing, so we are aware of the meetings approximately 20 days before, because it takes 5 days to publish, 15 days prior to the meeting. Katrina, could I have that? So for the January meeting, the deadline was Monday, December 13th at noon, and then it will publish in the paper on Friday, December 17th, and then the meeting is January 3rd. So you would have known December 13th that we were having a meeting on January 3rd. So it's approximately the 20 days prior.
You accept?
Yeah, it's just bad for, Monday's my worst day for business, but if it's only once a month, then I'll accept, because I can't.
It's normally the first Monday of the month. So you, and we have, like I said, it's a recommendation. The Township Board does have to approve it.
Okay.
But we have a schedule, so you could kind of at least see in advance the meeting dates. If there's no variances, I send an email out on Tuesday to let you know that the meeting has been canceled.
Okay.
Do we vote on the recommendation?
Yes.
I will support.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we call the roll?
Garverick, yes. Fritz.
Yes.
Steiner.
Yes. Anger,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, congratulations, Brad.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, item 5, approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as it is.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval of the minutes from November 17, 2021.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 17th, 2021 meeting as submitted.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Is anybody out there who'd like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Item A, continuation of the open public hearing regarding the request from Lock It Up Self-Storage, previously Erie Shores Self-Storage, to revoke the plan unit development plan and agreement and request to rezone parcel number 58-02-026-070-00 from PUD, plan unit development, to I-1 Planned Industrial Park, located on the northwest corner of Stearns and Crab Roads, otherwise known as 100 West Stearns Road, Temperance, Michigan 48182. Jody, do you have anything to add?
Yes. This is a continuation of the open public hearing. We have not had any public comment. I'm going to go over some of the information, and then we can see if there's any public comment, and then we should move forward with closing the open public hearing. We are still one member short, so we do need to have the applicant first to confirm they would like to proceed.
For the record, when did the open hearing begin? A few meetings ago.
No, I have it. October 13th,
Okay, thank you.
2021.
All right. So is there anybody, it's an open public hearing right now, right?
We're going to determine if the applicant wants to proceed before we move forward with any other comments.
Okay, we are short one board member. Do you want to proceed?
Yes, Jerry Parker for the applicant. We would like to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, this was an open public hearing on October 13th. On November 17th, there have been several meetings, and due to the lack of commission members, the applicant has determined on those meetings to defer. The applicant is Lock It Up Self-Storage, 100 Westerns, Temperance, Michigan, 48182, parcel number 5802-026-07000 on approximately 20 plus or minus acre parcel. On September 10th, 2003, a request was submitted by Erie Shores Storage Facility to rezone parcel 5802-026-07000 from Agricultural Zoning District to I-1 Planned Industrial Park. After a lengthy discussion, Bedford Township Planning Commission recommended to deny the request for the following reasons. The request is not compatible with the future land use map. The request does not meet the master plan strategies for industrial development. The request goes against the intent of the master plan with respect to the buffer. The intended use of the potential rezoning of an I-1 would go with the land and not the specific use intended for the requested party. It was noted that the request was withdrawn and never presented for the Township Board for a decision. The applicant submitted and moved forward through the PUD process for development of a mini warehouse as discussed for the rezoning minute, and I included those minutes from that previous meeting. The final PUD project and rezoning to PUD was approved on April 19, 2005. The PUD agreement was signed by Erie Shores Real Estate LTD managing members on July 25, 2005, and the Township Supervisor and Clerk on July 28, 2005. The approved PUD plan allowed for a limited mini warehouse development in an agriculturally zoned district through a plan unit development process, as a mini warehouse use is not otherwise permitted use within an agricultural zoning district. Site characteristics. The subject site consists of approximately 20 acres and was developed within a PUD plan unit development to allow for 9 mini warehouse buildings comprising of 67,440 square feet of self-storage space and 1 office building which may be used as a residence for an on-site property manager, with all said buildings to only be located in the 5.64 acre portion of the PUD property. The remainder of the PUD property, 14.36 acres, is to be kept open with no structures to be placed thereon, and is to be used for growing crops, an open space, a park, or a natural area. And that is all part of the PUD agreement, which is the agreement at the time from the property owner and the township, which continues with the land. There are 7 developed mini warehouses on site, where 9 were initially approved, which was last updated in 2019. The submitted construction drawings provide for 2 additional future structures. As the structures were approved with the PUD and have not yet been developed, should the request be granted by the Township Board, any additional development would require a new submittal to move forward with reviews and approvals with the site plan approval process. The site is served by municipal water and sanitary sewer, and the surrounding zonings are north agricultural, south on the west side of Crab, I-1 Planned Industrial Park, which is Bedford Park Center, southeast, east side of Crab, R2A Single Family Residential, east agricultural, and west agricultural. The new request is from the new owners, Lock It Up Self Storage. They are requesting a revocation of the approved PUD plan in the PUD agreement originally granted to Erie Shores Storage Facility, and are requesting to rezone the property to I-1 Planned Industrial Park to allow for future development of additional mini warehouse units within the approximate 14.36 acres. The applicant has been advised any additional development will require submittal for site plan approval. The master plan adopted on October 28, 2015 designates this area as agricultural preservation, a designation intended to specifically protect and preserve areas identified as being the best suited for the agricultural production. The Planning Department requested a review of the rezoning request to be conducted by Lucy Fortin of the Manikin Smith Group and planner for Bedford Township. Ms. Fortin prepared an overall review of the subject area and concluded the proposed zoning district would be inconsistent with the land development trends in the general facility of the subject property and is inconsistent with the goals, policy, and future land use map of the township's master plan. In conclusion, it was suggested the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the Township Board to deny the rezoning request for the following key reasons. It is inconsistent with the township's master plan, its future land use plan, and its goals and strategies. The protection measures currently in place with the PUD agreement, including restricted use, increased setback, screening, and high-quality architecture, would be revoked and would not apply to a site development plan under the proposed I-1 district. The property includes a significant portion of land within a 100-year floodplain as designated as prime agricultural land, and a rezoning would open the property to all uses allowed under the I-1 district, some which are likely to have a negative impact on surrounding uses. Some of this analysis may seem repetitive as there is an abundance of information to review regarding these requests. The Planning Department is encouraging the Commission members to review the information provided. Any recommendation to the Township Board will require 2 motions, one for the rezoning request and one for the revocation of the PUD and the PUD agreement. Please keep in mind, per section 400.1702A, number 2, industrial uses shall not be allowed and shall be excluded from all PUD projects. Therefore, a recommendation to either approve or deny the rezoning request would require a consistent recommendation of approval or denial for the revocation of the PUD and PUD agreement. As previously noted, industrial uses shall not be allowed and shall be excluded from the PUD projects, and a mini warehouse development is not permitted in the agricultural zoning district. So having said that, what that intends, if you revoke the PUD and the PUD agreement, then you would have to recommend to rezone it because the mini warehouses would not be permitted because it would go back to ag. If you choose to make a recommendation to deny the revocation, then it would stay as it is and they would move forward with the other 2 structures that were permitted on the approved PUD plan. I know the applicant has submitted, just to give some background, because we did work very closely with one of the gentlemen that represented Lock It Up, and if you look at the last pages of your packet, renderings were submitted, and you can see on the first plan what was approved for the structures, and you see 2 that are still shown as future. And then they did supply an aerial. But in speaking with the applicant at the time, the 3rd page shows the intent should the determination be to approve and revoke and then move forward with site plan, to keep the PUD, they would not meet the requirements of looking at what their intent is, because it does require a 30% open space. There are the 100-foot setbacks. So looking at their intent to increase of storage units, I believe the PUD would not be an option for them.
To expand under the
To
PUD.
expand in what was there, unless they would decrease the units and then redesign. I just wanted you to have an idea why we worked with the applicants at the time to give them an option, because that was their time they wanted to seek moving forward. At the time, the PUD requires a 30% open space, and the PUD agreement restricts the number of units, such as in our C3, you're only permitted, have to have a minimum of 4 acres, no more than 6 for mini warehouses. So that is where the language of the PUD agreement is. They were permitted to construct mini warehouses in 5.64 acres, which is coinciding with what we allow in a C3 district without rezoning the property other than to PUD.
And as I understand it, the original agreement was set up so the township could maintain some level of control over what happens on the property, how it's developed and how it's run and managed. And they couldn't do that under an I-1 zoning, right?
Well, if it was rezoned to I-1, the intent would be any uses in an I-1. At the time, they were proposing the industrial, but when you seek a rezoning, you're not required to show a plan, nor is it, until it comes to fruition, there's no requirement of a plan. You have to take in consideration all the uses permitted in that zoning district, even as tonight, if you choose to move forward and revoke the PUD in the agreement, keep in mind, all uses in an industrial zoning district would be permitted.
Yeah, Mr. Fritz?
Jody, would you clarify, if nothing happens with this and the PUD stays in place, they will be able to build what per the old agreement?
They have 2 more structures they can build on site. 2 more mini warehouses.
Units? How many?
There'd be a total of 9, I believe, then. They have 7 there now.
Okay.
But they aren't going to expand geographically. They have to build within the fence area, correct?
Well, they have 14.36 acres that they can expand in, and that's what they're requesting.
I'm talking about the 2.
Oh, the 2 are in the 5.64 acres that was approved. Yes.
Okay.
And the 2 units is how many? I mean, how many units are in each one? Sorry.
Well, I don't know exactly until they submit a plan for what they're proposing. I can tell you, give me one, I have to get the layout. I can maybe give you the size.
That's okay. I thought you had earlier said something that because of the space, they would have to change them requirements from the original, but that's not true, correct? This, how it is right now is how it'll stay, and they can go ahead with them to
2 additional.
developments.
The number of units in each mini warehouse would be determined on what size of storage units they wanted to create, and that would happen when they submitted for building permit.
Okay, thank you.
By changing this, they can put more on the property?
Pardon me?
By changing the zoning, they can get more on the property?
You would have to revoke the PUD.
Yeah, but that's what they're looking for.
They're looking to rezone to industrial and then create more.
Okay, thank you.
Which would mean expanding beyond the existing fence. There's no
Into the
room there.
14.36 acres, yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the 2 renderings that they submitted, the first one, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the building permit, so.
This would be new here, right?
To answer your question, Ron, if you look at the exhibits within the PUD agreement, those will give you the sizes of the structures.
Okay.
So you can see that they are, the one is approximately 30 by 200. And then ones are 58 by 200, 30 by 150.
Thank you. That's good.
It's good.
Anyone else have questions for Ms. Rector?
I hate to ask what if, but what if this was changed and went all the way to an industrial site and it went to the township board and got denied? Would it go back to the PUD
Yes,
even though we,
I will let Mr. Camprath answer
Okay.
the question.
thank you.
The only authority you have tonight at this stage is to give a recommendation
Right.
to the township board. Nothing would change, nothing would happen. We would just relay the paperwork and the reasons and the recommendation to the township board. So until the township board agrees to change the zoning and terminate the PUD, it will remain.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have a question for Ms. Rector? Do we invite the representative?
Good evening again. Jerry Parker, 1 Seagate, Toledo, Ohio. I'm the attorney for the applicant Lock It Up. With me as a representative of Lock It Up, their general manager, as well as our consulting engineer from GGL Consultants. If you have any answers or any questions, technical questions, I'll try to be brief. I'm sure that's not a disappointment to any of you. Oh, I'll try to be brief. I'm sure that's not a disappointment to any of you, but I've been doing this for a few decades. Doesn't mean I know anything. It just means I'm old. But my observations in doing a lot of land use work is that there's basically two principles you operate on. One is that any decision should not be adverse to the general public interest or be detrimental to adjacent uses, and basically be consistent with good principles of not, as I said, being detrimental to anybody in the township or anybody in the immediate area. The second principle is you basically should make a decision that's arbitrary or discriminates against an applicant, i.e., if somebody's got the zoning being requested across the street, what is the reason for denying the applicant? That's probably the most blatant example I can give. So in this case, what I'm going to submit to you is that we've had four meetings or 4 scheduled hearings now. There hasn't been one person here in opposition to that. There hasn't been anyone who write in opposition to our request. So I submit to you that there isn't a groundswell of opposition to this request, which means it isn't detrimental to anybody in the adjacent neighborhood, obviously, or they'd be here. My experience tells me that if there's opposition, people want to run me out of here and tar and feather me. I've had those kind of meetings. Here, there's been nobody. So I think that's the best evidence, despite my comments, that it's not detrimental to anybody. Secondly, in fact, it's about as quiet as a use as you can possibly get. I know you can't pin us to this, or we can't be pinned to this, but we're going to do it. The utilities in the air, we only have water. We're on a septic system. So it limits what one can do, okay, under your regulations and under federal regulations. The second criteria is, as I said, don't discriminate. And that's why I sent you those handouts. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But you've got a tremendous industrial park right across the street. And it goes for a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile down Stearns, right across the street from us. So I don't think our request is inconsistent with an adjacent use. Secondly, if you look at your master plan, the property to the east and west of us, or the properties to the east and west of us, are recommended on your master plan for research and development. That's the one to the west. I've given you this handout. And right across diagonally to the southeast, research and development. Our parcel somehow, mysteriously, is not recommended for development or research. So I'm not going to argue with the person who wrote up the recommendation, but to me, that there's no difference in terms of location of the property and why are we singled out for dissimilar treatment. The other two factual assertions that I think are made in the staff write-up is that this is floodplain and you can't build on it. Well, you can. I'm sure most of you are aware with satisfying the correct fill, you can build on a floodplain. So that's not an impediment to us going forward here. Secondly, and I really don't want to argue about it, but this is not what I would call pristine farmland. The farmer that farms this doesn't pay us a cent. The reason he doesn't pay us a cent is because a substantial portion of it along the road is unfarmable because it's underwater. So what he does in exchange for farming our land is mow the grass. That's what he does. So it's not what I would call quality farmland that, is going to be lost with our development. So I guess the bottom line here is that, once again, there isn't a groundswell of opposition. There isn't any opposition to this from the public. And secondly, as I said, your master plan and your existing zoning has a wonderful park industrial park right across the street. So why are we different, is my question. And lastly, as I said, we are probably going to have as quiet as a use as you can possibly do. I think there's a need for it. It's obvious we're successful there. We're beneficial to the township. And all we're trying to do is do business and add to the township's tax base. It's that simple. So with those comments, that's our position on our request, and we would appreciate your consideration.
Does anybody have any
questions?
Questions for Mr. Parker?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms.
We
Rector.
haven't closed the open public hearing yet either.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor for closing the public hearing?
Support.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Parker? Mr. Gobert.
I guess, and probably Jody, I don't know who else. That was my self-storage. I started it. Might as well come out now. The reason we did that, what Jody said on the PUD, because
Could you talk to your mic?
once you get zoning, they don't know what you're going to put in there. Mr. Parker's 100% right. All the flood zone you can build on, it was flood when I built it. All the parking lots are designed that way, so the part of it is. Did we wish at the time we could have did it because of it? I started in self-storage when Mr. Tolson did. I sold to him. I agree with everything around it's not. It's across the street. I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but I think it's a great thing for it that he gets to use his land. I wish I could have at the time. That's Mr. Tolson, that's what he does. It's going to be self-storage, so I think that's all he would be doing is putting more buildings up, and it would be more tax base. So I have no problems with what him and his organization is looking at.
Anyone have a question for Mr. Parker? Comments? Go ahead, Mr. Hum.
Is there someone that lives on site, or is these a 24-hour like let people in and out?
Please state your name and
Mike DeVolder with Tolson Enterprises, along with Lock It Up. Presently, there is a house on site, and I don't know if that house was there prior to the self-storage. A portion of it is used for an office, a very small portion. The downstairs was an apartment. It is no longer an apartment. We've decided not to have a tenant in there. The upstairs presently has a tenant. Our intention is going forward is to remove that structure and put a much more professional looking building. And if anybody's familiar with our center on Jackman Road, we're planning on modeling the rental office very similar to the one that's there.
Okay.
Has the MDDQ or Monroe County Drain Commission looked at it, maybe even going back to when you were an investor?
What's that?
Has the Monroe County Drain Commission looked at that property and made any recommendations about how far out you could build?
I developed it. I bought the property and I built it, and I was Erie Shores. And yeah, everything was, we ran through, we used Dave Kubitsky to do all the engineering. We took it out of floodplains. We had to raise everything a foot, so the floodplains, the drainage is in the parking lots. So basically what it lets them do is utilize the rest of the property with more units and be more profitable. I don't understand why both sides of it is not zoned that way. I have no interest in it. I'm sold out, so everybody understands. I sold to Mr. Tolson years ago, and it doesn't affect, like Mr. Parker said, it affects nobody in the area. Would I like any business, instead of having 9 buildings, be able to put 15? It's more profitable. It's not a strip club. It's not noise at night. And both sides of it and across the street is, so I think it's the way to go. So,
Mr. Mahoney?
Mr. Anger?
I just, to kind of piggyback on what Joe said, we can't go by what they're proposing because it could be anything industrial. But with that said, we have an industrial park across the street. There's a railroad track bordering it, another road bordering the other side. So it's one side that has some farmland, and then it looks like thousands of feet until the next house. So even if it was something different that was industrial, I don't think I would be opposed to that, obviously depending on what it is, but it seems to be the proper location for an industrial facility because the other land's are already made for research and then adjacent areas.
Mr. Steiner?
So if you look at the different types of zoning, it's almost like it's got it boxed in. It's currently under a PUD with a C commercial use, but also with the stipulation with that commercial use that acreage can't exceed the 6 acres for this type of structures and mini warehouses, whatever however you want to term those. So that's one side of it. The industrial side of it, it doesn't fit in the industrial zoning law. Because again, if you did expand it to go to full industrial, as was said earlier, that property could turn into anything. Under a PUD agreement, the township does have more say into the site plan and the restrictions and things that can happen on the property. Under industrial, they just have to follow the site plan rules of industrial property. And I doubt that would happen, but somebody could come forward and say, I'm going to tear those warehouses down. I got my industrial zoning, and I'm going to build X because it's industrial and it fits in industrial zoning. Again, I don't think that would happen, but that's the reality of things, what somebody else could do down the road. Maybe the Tolson family at some point says, well, a couple of years went by, it wasn't quite as profitable as we thought, so we're going to sell it off as industrial. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle on this one. I know that, again, the property's there, and there's not a lot of use to the north with the flooded area. I was out there. I met out there at the property and I looked at what they were talking about doing. And I obviously didn't make up my mind then, and I'm struggling which way I want to make up my mind now. I mean, it's too bad the commercial doesn't say, you know what, we could expand X amount of acres. But again, that you'd have to completely revamp the commercial, the ordinance for commercial. So I'm just struggling in the middle here right now, and have to make a decision at some point which way to go here.
Mr. Parker, I was curious to know, just having a look at the Tolson Enterprises website, it seems like they're more, you guys are more involved or invested in retail properties. I didn't see so much industrial, correct?
We have a lot of lock-it-up facilities.
And lock-it-up storage facilities.
Yes, they have retail, yes. I would say I've been representing Tolson for, about 25 years now, and I choose my clients pretty carefully when I come to these kind of things, because I don't make representations that don't happen. And if I ever find out that they do happen, I don't represent people like that anymore. Tolson is one of the finest companies I've ever represented. In terms of retail, I would say it's probably 70-30, but there are a lot of Tolson lock-it-up facilities in the Toledo area and Sylvania Township, et cetera. And they do a fabulous job. And I'm here to tell you that's what's going to be built there.
You brought up tax base.
Yeah.
How much do you anticipate it'll grow if this
Well,
goes
we're putting up
forward?
9 new buildings, okay? And you get building permits, and the taxing authorities pay attention to the cost of the building permits. So, I mean, you know, it's not $10 million, but every little bit helps. It's going to be some tax increase without any detriment to the schools. No, there's no children here. So it's a total win for school districts.
I drove by the property and noticed, yeah, that is a floodplain. You can easily tell that. And you would really have to build it up to build something on there. I also noticed the property to the north could be a competition to you in terms of outdoor storage. It's not in your plans to do outdoor storage, is it?
No.
At this point?
No. I guess my main point has already been brought up. Right across the street from us is an beautiful industrial park. I didn't even know it was there, quite frankly, till I drove out prior to filing the application. You ought to be very happy and very, very proud of that because it's a nice park. It seems to be very well run, and it's right across the street.
You know, I think using the word discriminatory is a little bit out there. Zoning has to start and begin someplace.
I know. I wasn't saying it as to be contentious. I'm just saying, you know, it is across the street. So our request, I said, is not out of line. We've got to use similar right across the street. That was my only point.
Ms. Racker?
I just wanted to give the commission a little bit background that is actually a planned industrial park. It was all developed and has agreements with the township as well. It was developed as an industrial park.
You know, and then the other thing I kind of put in the balance is, you know, when we think about industrial investment, what we think about are jobs. You know, how many people can be employed by a particular business. Unfortunately, in your business, you don't need a lot of people working it. I mean, is there one person on site at all times?
Yes, there's always a person there during operational hours. Security is pretty good, but no, it's once again, it's not a job producer, but it is a real estate tax producer of some kind. So it's a net gain.
I try to put due weight in the master plan. I think planning is really important. I scoured this the last few days. Last week I was dead set against this, and the more I thought about this and looking at the property, you know, I'm like Rick, Mr. Steiner. I'm like, gosh, I just don't know which way to go. It's a benign operation. It doesn't cause problems. There's not traffic.
What struck me is while you've got the master plan has adjacent parcels designed and designated, no different than ours, for research and development. And I've dealt with master plans all along. And in my position, sometimes master plans is, if you're going to go by the master plan, we don't need any of us. If it's in accordance with the master plan, you get it. If it's not, don't have a hearing. So the reason I showed it to you there is because it seems to be curious as to why those parcels right adjacent to us have a different designation under the master plan.
Well, we're afforded some level of discretion
I know.
when you bring these.
I know.
Yeah, does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Owen?
Mr. Kaverick?
I guess, you know, I think one of the things when I built it, the concern was what was going to put there on zoning. Tolson Enterprises is, Harvey Tolson is one of the most straightforward person. I guarantee that's what's going in there. They want to use their land, make more money on their property. He's a businessman. This is America. So that's what's going in. You know, I said again, that's with the zoning, with Mr. Parker says on both sides. Do I wish I could have done that then? I couldn't because, you know, they weren't going to let us. They were afraid to do zoning based on what was going to go there. And Harvey's he's one of the gurus. When I went to Vegas and the thing, this is what the guy does and does right. So that's what's going in there. And I'd have a problem with it at a different location. I have no problem with it here.
I think the other thing I put in the balance is the trends. We talk about trends and, what direction is the township going? And there's still a lot of people who have lived here a long, long time and like that agricultural feel, the rural feel. But the reality is we're a suburb of Toledo, not a huge city. It's a medium size, but so, we're a fast-growing community. And I think people have different expectations now, and some people would be disappointed if they see more development and less farmland. But the problem is there probably aren't a lot of people going into farming today. And I even checked on the neighboring property, and I noticed that was for sale, and I know that's been for sale for years. So it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of interest as much as there is. I know it's still an important thing, as the master plan indicates, but I think about where the trends are as well. So that's what I think about as well. Ms. Rector.
I just wanted to give clarification. If the commission could look at the second page of Manigan Smith from Lucy Fortin's review letter regarding the existing zoning and future land use. Keep in mind that the existing zoning that we're speaking on the Crab Road on the southeast section of the township, the property owners would have to seek a rezoning, and the future land use is the intent of the master plan. Should they seek a rezoning and want to rezone to industrial, you do have single-family residential and agricultural in both of those districts and to the northeast corner. So keep in mind that the agricultural is the existing zoning and residential. The future land use would have to be a request from a property owner.
Anybody else have anything to say? Questions?
I'm prepared to make a motion if you are willing to entertain one.
Okay, I'll go ahead and, Matt, make a motion.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the board to revoke the planned unit development plan and agreement and request to rezone parcel number 5802-026-07000 from PUD planned unit development to I-1 planned industrial park located on the northwest corner of Stearns and Crab Roads, otherwise known as 100 West Stearns Road, Temperance, Michigan, for multiple reasons. One, it being a good location for industrial, being that there's an industrial park across the street. It's adjacent to a railroad, so that there's nothing that can be built there on the railroad anyways. There's no adjacent homes for hundreds or if not thousands of feet, and the nearby land is on the master plan for future development of research and development as nearby possibilities too.
And I'm sorry, I tried to catch you. We need two separate motions. We need one a motion to determination revoking the PUD or the PUD agreement, and then a second motion supporting why you're revoking the PUD, and then your request of recommendation on the rezoning. They need to be two separate.
Okay. I just put two
That's all
separates
right.
in the
I
same
tried
one.
to catch you, but you were reading along, and I didn't want
So we're
to.
doing zoning first and then the
PUD.
PD revocation.
They're both recommendations, so it doesn't really matter.
So the first
Okay.
motion will be for the revoke the plan unit development with what I just stated.
And I second that one.
Okay, Mr. Garver, can you take the roll?
Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Garvix, yes. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Steiner?
I'm going to say nay.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Okay, motion passes
I will do my second motion,
5-1.
which is a recommendation to the board to rezone the parcel number 5802-026-07000 from PUD to I-1 planned industrial park located on the northwest corner of Stearns and Crab Roads, otherwise known as 100 West Stearns Road, Temperance, Michigan, for the same reasons that I listed earlier.
Second.
Mr. Garver?
Who seconded? Mr. Fritz? Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Garvix, yes. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Steiner?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 5-1.
Thank you very Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a
Parker.
great holiday, everybody.
Before they leave, I did want to let you know, it will go to the Township Board, and they meet January 4th. Please let me know if that meeting date will work for you as it's right after the holidays. Otherwise, perfect. Thank you.
Good night. Okay, we're going to move along to item 9, new business. Item A, request for a sign waiver for Heitman Steel Processing LP in a I3 General Industrial Zoning District on parcel number 5802-101-008-10, otherwise known as 640 Lavoie, Erie, Michigan, 48133. Ms. Rector?
Yes, the applicant is Carrie Brock. Sign company is Fast Signs. The owner is HS Processing LP, Heitman Steel, 630 Lavoie Road, Erie, Michigan. And the location for the sign is at 640 Lavoie Road, Erie, Michigan. I3 industrially zoned. The applicant is seeking to install a second wall sign measuring 200.63 square feet in an I3 general industrial zoning district. Per section 400.1922, one accessory wall sign not to exceed 50 square feet in area is permitted. The subject parcel sought and was granted a sign waiver on October 17, 2013 to allow the existing wall sign measuring 431.77 square feet, the height HS Heitman Steel. Therefore, the additional proposed signage requires a waiver to permit a second wall sign and a 200.63 square foot area wall waiver. I'm not going to read the next portion. It's the portion of the ordinance for the 7-year contract. At this time, the applicant is not inquiring to sign that contract due to the location, and for directional purposes, they would like to maintain the pole sign that's existing. In speaking with the applicant, the determination was made not to move forward with assigning the 7-year grace period and move forward and request a sign waiver to allow the existing 14.5-foot tall, 50 square foot pylon sign to remain. Per section 419.22.6 in an I3 general zoning district states not more than 2 freestanding signs, monument signs, shall not exceed 50 square feet in area each and not to exceed 7 feet in height. Therefore, a waiver is required to permit the nonconforming pylon sign to remain and a 7.5-foot height waiver. An aerial map has been provided which identifies the location of the sign within the subject site. It should be verified that there are 2 monument signs existing on the site. The applicant stated due to the company branching into another division, the additional signage is requested to aid in visual communications for branding and traffic directional purposes. Should the request be considered, the following waivers are required. A waiver to allow a second wall sign on the building, a 200.63 square foot area waiver for the wall sign, to permit the nonconforming freestanding sign to remain, and a 7.5-foot height waiver for the freestanding sign. The following shall be considered for any inclusion in any motion to approve. All required permits shall be obtained from Bedford Township, and the applicant shall continue to maintain the entire perimeter landscaped area of the base no less than 2 feet wide and healthy growing condition. If you look at the submitted rendering from the applicant, the lowercase HS Heitman Steel is what is existing, and that was granted a waiver. They are looking to include HT Heitman Tubular, and that is why they would also like to maintain the, on Exhibit B, the existing pole sign where the Steel USA Incorporated is. That is no longer going to be there, and they're going to have their Heitman Steel and then Heitman Tubular, both on the same building, but they would like for directional purposes, both on the pylon sign and keeping it above. If you look at the aerial, you can kind of see where you come into the structure, why they're requesting to maintain that height of the sign for directional purposes. I believe the applicant is available to answer any further questions.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Rector. Anybody have a question, comment about the packet?
Just a kind of an observation question. So the existing signs are not actually on the main Lavoie Road. They're kind of like in your parking driveway, correct?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
To clarify, they won't have to bring the sign into compliance, the pylon sign.
That's why they're asking to maintain the sign and the sign waiver of the height and to maintain the pylon sign that's existing. They just want to change out the insert and remove the one sign and insert Heitman Tubular because it's another division now of their product.
So they never have to change it, no 7-year, they have to get it in conformance in 7
As
years.
long as it remains Heitman steel and they don't change the facing on it of Heitman steel or Heitman Tubular, this commission would grant that as their sign waiver, yes.
Mr. Gobert?
Yeah, this is another one. It's kind of funny for me. I go down that road and it's nothing but industrial. It doesn't affect anybody whatsoever. And to make it easier for the trucks that come into the Bates operation, I'm so sorry. So it's, to me, it's just if it helps them on the side of the road. I've been to their plant. I went and looked at this stuff, and there's nothing there but water plants, commercial, and just everything. And I think it'll help their truck drivers and everybody. It's not a big thing for all these people are going to see it and go on. Their business is robust. They're great to this community, and it doesn't affect anything whatsoever there, in my opinion. So,
Mr. Fritz?
Also, the height of the sign, if you look around, there could be pickup trucks or other things parked there, that sign needs to be that high. And it also is a safety factor, I feel, to get them up there and get them out of the road and get them in where they got to be.
Yeah, it was my concern was about the non-conforming sign, and I think you make a great point, Mr. Fritz, and I figure it's out in the open. I don't think it's an encumbrance for anything. And the wall sign, it fits. It's a big building.
I think the structure is over, the wall is actually over 1,000 feet long.
Mm-hmm. So, anybody else have any questions or comments? Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make one final motion for my final day in the Planning Commission. I'd like to make a motion to request for the sign for HS Processing LP in an I3 industrial zoning district on parcel number 5802-101-00810, otherwise known as 640 Lavoie Road, Erie, Michigan 48133, to allow a second wall sign on the building, a 200.63 square foot area waiver for the wall sign, to permit the non-conforming freestanding sign to remain, a 7.5 foot height waiver for the freestanding sign, including all required permits shall be obtained from Bedford Township. The applicant shall continue to maintain the entire perimeter landscaped area at the base and no less than 2 feet wide, growing and in a healthy condition.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Steiner seconds. Mr. Gavert, you want to call the roll?
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Steiner,
Aye.
Fritz,
Yes.
Garverick, yes, Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can you state your name and
Carrie Brack with Fast Signs.
I forgot to advise you, we're one member short.
That's okay. I'm like, this was the easiest commission I've ever had. I didn't even have to say anything. No, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay, on to public comment. No public comment. Any information to pass on? Next meeting?
we have a few items that are close to being ready. The next meeting will be tentatively scheduled. Should we have items ready on January 12th? Otherwise, it would be January 26th. Everyone should have that meeting schedule that was approved last meeting.
Okay.
If you need a copy, please send me an email. That's all the information I have.
Okay. Okay, commission/staff comment. Do you want to start, Mr. Gilbert? Mr. Anchor?
Just kind of reiterate, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve on the Planning Commission. I take every decision I make very seriously, and I never go into any meeting knowing my answer. I like to hear what I see, and it's been a joy and a pleasure to do with you guys, so thank you.
Mr. Fritz?
Thank you, Matt. You've been a pleasure to work with. Everybody else, have a good holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Matt, thanks. It was great to make your acquaintance. I hope you come out to wood carving some night. You're a good guy, and I look forward to your next chapter in local government. So,
Merry Christmas, everyone. Mr. Helm?
Thanks, Matt. You learned a lot from you, just being on the commission. You've been here a while, so I'm learning off you, and I appreciate your time and effort. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Mr. Steiner?
Well, Matt, sounds like a broken record, but same thing. Thanks. It's been a pleasure to work with you. So you and I ran into each other at the store one day, had a long conversation, nice conversation. So I enjoyed talking with you, and again, enjoyed working with you. So take care and stay in touch with everybody. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody else, and to everybody here too.
Ms. Ingram?
I just want to say happy holidays, everyone.
Mr. Camper?
It's been a great year. You made a lot of tough decisions, dealt with issues, and happy holidays. Thanks.
Ms. Rector?
Yes. First, I would like to thank Matt for all his years he has served for the commission and representing to the BZA. Sometimes I've enjoyed working with you. And welcome Mr. Helm to the BZA. It will go to the Township Board for a decision on January 4th. I wish all the public a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year, and to all the commission members as well. Thank you.
Jody, and thank you. You do a great job, and
Thank you.
we're lucky to have you. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
What card?